to on this event. So good morning again, good afternoon and good evening, everyone, depending where you are joining us. And many of you are quite familiar with Peregrine, and thank you, Ted, another organization we happily work with. And today, on the back of Ted's presentation on, quite interesting insight I've gotten, made some notes also on IACP's commitment to quality and continuous improvement and business education, right? I wanted to share with you one of our latest additions to our assurance of learning solutions for supporting your international accreditation business schools. And this one is on critical thinking, but more specifically, how to conduct a program level evaluation to measure student learning outcomes and student learning performance related to critical thinking competencies, right? As Ted had in one of his slides, IACP has a really nice table outlining the key learning outcomes. And one of them is, of course, critical thinking. So let's start with a quote, right? W.E. Deming, he said, "You can't manage what you don't measure." So often we are trying to manage our programs, improve quality, enhance the student experience, but our efforts are much less effective if we do not collect objective, consistent, and reliable data. We all know about the importance of data-driven decision-making and the reasons that data and understanding big data are more important than ever. And we all know that decisions are made better based on good, solid data rather than our intuition. And, there's no need probably to reiterate why learning outcomes are important in higher education, because we have made a promise to our students, right? That when they complete our business programs, they will have acquired certain knowledge, but more importantly these days, competencies and skills, right? That they can apply to their work environments. And Ted mentioned that, we are expected to graduates who are able to dive in and start handling and managing, the example he mentioned was broad scale digitalization at an organization. So then how do we know we are delivering on those promises and learning expectations to our students, right? And how do we ensure that we continue delivering on those promises? And of course, the answer is by setting effective and measurable learning objectives and outcomes and measuring them. And, Ted mentioned it, and so did Jeff from both ACBSB and AACSB. They both have the same name or share the name, Jeff. So the quality assurance agencies expect schools to put into place rigorous measurement tools to better understand the degree to which students have retained what they have learned and attained the competencies that are vital, as we've been talking about, for succeeding in not only today's world, but the world of the future. So, these are, all the concepts that are quite familiar with you, measuring student knowledge, competencies, and skills, and then ensuring continuous improvement in our programs in order to be able to understand the gaps, also make changes based on, the areas of weaknesses and strengths and so forth. But at the end of the day, we need to be held accountable. We need to become transparent to all our stakeholders.
Alimaa, can I?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is Ted. I just wanted to let you know we're seeing the slide presentation as opposed to the full slide.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're looking at presenter view, and I think it's a little hard for some people to see the full screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. That's what I was trying to. Okay, I can do new share.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ted. Appreciate that. All right, so you're all very familiar with the W.E. Deming's quality cycle for quality improvement, right? And it has the plan, do, and study and ACT sort of cycles, which could be really easily adapted to higher education, right? And we find that the Deming cycle provides a really nice systematic view to review and make the most out of our learning outcomes. And the part that, from Peregrine's perspective, that we like to focus and assist our partner institutions is, understanding the student performance, data and results, and more importantly, using the data to make academic decisions. And we want to focus on delivering quality education to our learners, right? But then the last stage of the Deming cycle, making changes and improvements into our academic programs using the results of assessment. And at the end of the day, continue not only improve the results, but also close the loop of quality assurance process. So one thing that we have been talking quite a bit is, the readiness of our graduates to tackle the real world problems, not only of today, but of the future. But over the last 10 years, we have seen many studies, of course, research reports and media outlets, and they all have highlighted significant skill gaps that exist in our graduates, right? And so what we know about workplace skills and soft skills that are needed in our graduates really need to be upped up. So here's an example of a Wall Street Journal 2016 employer survey, where 92% of executives consider soft skills and technical skills to be equally important. Whereas in the LinkedIn survey, 60% of human resource managers stated that lack of soft skills in leadership limits the company productivity levels, right? And there was another interesting MIT, I think, Sloan School of Study in 2018 that have implemented soft skills training, and where they have conducted it at 5 Bangalore factories, it yielded a 250% improvement on ROI. And then, of course, the Society of Human Resource Managers also have put out its results on its surveys, and they have identified the top missing soft skills in our graduates as problem solving, communication, critical thinking, innovation and creativity, and ability to deal with complex and ambiguous problems. Now, these workplace skills, right, the soft skills, which are personal qualities necessary for situational awareness and workplace effectiveness, it's quite difficult to not only develop them. We have been talking about experiential learning and education, but also it's a challenge to objectively measure these qualities. And how do we make sure that as business programs, we are successfully able to help our learners to achieve these competencies. So in order to assist our partner institutions with the noble cause of continually improving our learners' competencies and skills that are required to be successful, agile, and resilient, we've been talking in an earlier panel. In today's workplace, we at Peregrine have developed a number of solutions to address these challenges. And I like how Dr. Lakshmi, started her discussion in terms of, defining resiliency in terms of the attitude of can-do mindset, right? And in terms of thinking of solutions versus focusing on problems. So you are quite familiar with the first solution we offer, which is global business education assessment tool for measuring student learning and student learning outcomes specifically related to core business knowledge areas. And you're familiar with our expansive reporting capability and analytics that helps the programs to not only externally benchmark, but also to identify knowledge gaps and areas for programmatic improvement. Now, Evaluate Skills is something fairly new, and it is a soft skills assessment tool that uses the 360-degree evaluation process. And that also directly measures proficiency levels of essential workplace competencies, including critical thinking, problem solving, emotional IQ. We have a database of 200 plus soft skills included in value skills. And it uses the perspective of peers, could be mentors, instructors, or advisors, colleagues, if it's an MBA program where students coming in with prior work experience. It does provide objective and accurate measure of relative skill levels as observed and expressed in the learner's workplace or learning environment. Another one is, and the one that I'm going to focus today is the critical thinking assessment. And then because we did touch upon the experiential learning aspect of, developing competencies in our learners, we do have an online business strategy simulation, and it's called One Day. So it's something that's immersive, something that's based on experiential learning, and something that, because we at Peregrine do focus on assessment, comes with the assessment piece built into it. So another quote, by Albert Einstein: education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think, right? So the purpose of the critical thinking assessment is to measure knowledge at various levels of Bloom's taxonomy. This was developed in reaction to a need for an assessment that can be used at the doctoral business administration level, as a knowledge-based assessment that we offer does not quite adequately meet the needs of this level of learning, right? And then the assessment is designed to measure learning outcomes at the programmatic level and could be used at the course level, like our knowledge-based assessments, but that is not the original intent of the assessment. And the program level evaluation is something that schools struggle most, and that's something we offer as well. And when we talk about the critical thinking, right, it is difficult to objectively measure the higher levels of learning. And then, most of the programmatic assessment solutions available today are applicable to the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy. And, we are in the quality assurance event and conference, and Peregrine, as you know, works very closely with, all of our partner organizations that are quality assurance agencies, and as they listed here. And, all the accreditors displayed here require the business programs to have identified and defined learning outcomes and learning objectives within the established framework of quality assurance processes, right? And those involve formative and summative assessments, as well as direct and indirect measures of learning resulting in programmatic evaluation. So the same is with our GBE assessment. The critical thinking is customizable to meet your particular program's needs. And we offer you 6 topics which align with the core business knowledge areas as listed here, and then which you are, I'm sure, quite familiar with. But we have added a few extra topics that are quite, innovative in a sense, but also in alignment with the future needs of business programs, right? And that's cryptocurrency, cybersecurity, and entrepreneurship. So what do we have here? What are we offering here, right? So the assessment test bank includes 40 assessment items for each topic that are randomly generated for our learners. So there are 10 questions per assessment item. And so there are 400 questions in the test bank per assessment item, and that just translates into 7,600 overall. And we have these scenarios, and all scenarios and corresponding rubrics are written by our subject matter experts to ensure consistency in scoring. So the SMEs provided model responses and keywords that are expected to ensure faculty have a foundation for scoring. So the assessment uses meta tags to organize and render desired scenarios based on keywords that are related to topic, issues. We also work with the based on NACE competencies. There are 8 of them, and that's something that's coming soon. So the assessment item itself is comprised of one short case scenario of less than 300 words that are in alignment with the business education topic. So then they are presented with 2 types of questions, including multiple choice question and a short written answer. The multiple choice and short written answer complement each other because we want to ensure proficiency through measuring knowledge, but also measurability to think critically. It is important to recognize that every assessment item has 10 questions, and 4 of those are short answer. Questions are served to learners from the lowest tier to the highest tier, and therefore learners will be prompted to answer the Bloom's levels 1 and 2 first, and then the more complex and more difficult levels, such as Bloom's 5 and 6, last. So each assessment item tests all levels of Bloom's taxonomy, and if you notice that we are grouping them into, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, as shown here. So how's critical thinking is measured, right? The assessment item scenarios prompt learners to take on the role of within a company to solve a particular problem. And then these scenarios encourage the learner to, put their thinking hat and analyze, assess, and reconstruct information to come up with their own answers. So you can, in terms of customization, you can choose the topics that best reflect your learning outcomes and the tier of learning that is most relevant to your particular program. So for example, you may only want to assess Bloom's levels 3 through 6 because you assume that learners in a doctorate program should already have a solid foundation in Bloom's 1 and 2. Now remember that each tier represents 2 levels of Bloom's as shown in the previous slide, right? So therefore, if we say that we're going to only measure tier 2 and 3, that will correspond to Bloom's 3 through 6. So when you reduce the number of tiers you're assessing, you will reduce the number of questions asked on the exam. So given that the example of, say, assessment tiers 2 and 3 included, then each assessment item would generate 7 questions, where it's 4 multiple choice and 3 short answers. So finally, you are able to choose the number of assessment items per topic. And so when we work with the school to customize their assessment, we have to make certain that, school, truly fully understand their goals. And then we can really work with the school, of course, to, recommend topics, taxonomies, and number of assessments to include in the exam, in the critical thinking assessment tool. So it's important because, we can really work with you and, figure out what best meets your particular needs. So this assessment service was created, as I mentioned, with programmatic assessment in mind, but could be used at the course level. But that would make only sense if you want to include, specific Bloom's tiers and so forth. There are 2 exam types, and I will not go into too much detail. One is open-ended, the other one is more closed, forward progress only, and we can discuss in more detail how each is conducted. Now, in terms of scoring, the multiple choice questions are automatically scored by the system, but short answers need to be manually scored by faculty or designated scorers, right? The score given after the completion of the exam to the learner is the score on multiple choice questions. So the short answers are not factored into the final score until they have scored. And so therefore the students will not experience a lower score because of unscored short answers. And as you can see, the scoring interface is very easy to use. It's point and click, and you can easily sort answers in the queue by topic, exam, and test takers. So when scoring, the faculty have access to a sample 4-point Likert rubric that can be adjusted to meet specific needs. And all scenarios, as I mentioned, and corresponding rubrics are written by our subject matter experts to ensure consistency in scoring, but also SMEs provided model responses in a sense, and keywords that are expected to ensure that faculty have some good reference and foundation for scoring, and most importantly, scoring consistently. So in terms of, having an access, like with all of our online solutions, program administrators, faculty, or deans, or directors of accreditation committees will have full access to all the student results and can easily, track student progress, download individual student results after an assessment is completed, and to get a full view of the performance results. So in summary, as you know, we offer our assessment solutions that are quite meaningful, provide meaningful data, right? Useful data, usable data. And these offer cost-effective and practical solution to the evaluation of programmatic level learning outcomes. And in terms of GBE assessment, it's related to knowledge, the critical thinking assessment on its own, and the soft skills covers the workplace readiness and professional competencies. And with the use of our assessment tools, you are able to conduct comparisons of the program's results to multiple external aggregates. And in the case of GBE, we have a wealth of external benchmarking data and comparisons. But then if you use the pre and post, right, program level, what we call inbound and outbound assessment, you can get a really good internal analysis of your program. And we are working, we are offering these solutions to help you with direct measure of student knowledge and student competencies and skills. But at the same time, with the same tool, you will be able not only to meet your continuous improvement goals, but also meet your accreditors and quality assurance partners requirements. All right, so I hope I stayed in time, but if you have any questions, thank you. I'm happy to answer them. And here's my email address.
Thank you, Alimaa. It was a wonderful session as usual. From your side, you've been able to clearly explain what Peregrine has to offer for the kind of business school that we are building for tomorrow. I mean, one of the points that I want to really mention is that we are talking about technology online and everything, but Peregrine has always been online and has pioneered a lot of work in this area. So the business school